Kiara bounced on her paws, a thrill tingling from her nose to the tip of her tail. Her father, Simba, had just announced that she would be responsible for overseeing a new section of the Pridelands. It wasn't exactly new, more like underloved. A stretch of savanna bordering the outlands. It had been neglected and needed a lion's touch, Kiara's touch. She imagined lush green grasses, sparkling watering holes, and happy animals all thriving under her care. This wasn't just about ruling, it was about helping. It was about making a real difference. She pictured herself solving problems, mediating disputes, and bringing everyone together in harmony. This was her chance to truly shine, to prove she was ready for the responsibilities that awaited her as queen. "Are you ready, Kiara?" Simba asked, his voice rumbling with pride. Nala stood beside him, her eyes twinkling with affection and a hint of knowing amusement. Kiara puffed out her chest. "Born ready," she declared, perhaps a little too enthusiastically. She could already picture the welcome ceremony, the grateful faces of the animals, and the feeling of accomplishment as she surveyed her flourishing territory. Little did she know, the reality was going to be very different from her dreams. This territory wasn't just underloved, it was troubled. Years of conflict and neglect had left deep scars, and the animals who lived there were wary, distrustful, and definitely not ready to welcome a new leader with open paws. Kiara was about to learn that being a leader wasn't just about having good intentions. It was about earning trust, facing challenges, and understanding the hearts of those you served. And this was going to be the biggest challenge of her young life. This was going to take every ounce of her courage, her compassion, and her cunning to set things right. The sun was setting on the Pridelands, casting long shadows, and Kiara was stepping into the darkness, ready to bring the dawn. The next morning, Kiara, accompanied by her ever-loyal friends, Bunga and Ono, set off for her new territory. Bunga, as usual, was brimming with enthusiasm, already imagining all the amazing honey bugs he would find. Ono, ever observant, scanned the horizon, his keen eyes searching for any potential problems. As they crossed the border, marked by a crumbling stone ridge, the landscape began to change. The vibrant green of the Pridelands faded into a dusty brown. The trees were sparse and gnarled, their leaves withered and brittle. The air felt heavy with a sense of neglect. Kiara's pause slowed. This wasn't the paradise she had envisioned. The watering hole she had imagined sparkling under the sun was nothing more than a muddy puddle, barely enough to quench a thirsty cub. The lush grasses were replaced by thorny bushes and dry, cracked earth. "Wow," Bunga said, his usual cheerfulness dampened. "This place could use a little something." Ono, circling above, reported, "I see very few animals, Kiara, and those I do see look unhappy." Kiara felt a pang of disappointment, but she quickly shook it off. This was her challenge, and she wouldn't back down. "Well," she said, forcing a smile, "that just means we have a lot of work to do. Let's find the animals and see how we can help." They approached a small group of zebras huddled near a scraggly acacia tree. Kiara greeted them warmly. "Hello, I'm Kiara, and I'm here to help make this territory a better place for everyone." The zebras looked at her with suspicion. One old mare stepped forward. "Help? We don't need your help. We've been managing just fine on our own." "But the land," Kiara gestured around. "It could be so much better. We could bring water, plant new grasses." "Leave us alone," another zebra snapped. "We don't want your fancy Pridelands ideas. Just go back where you came from." Kiara's ears drooped. This wasn't going as planned. These animals weren't just unhappy. They were hostile. She exchanged a worried glance with Bunga and Ono. This was going to be harder than she thought. The sun beat down on the dry land, mirroring the cold reception she had received. This territory wasn't just underloved, it was broken. And Kiara had a feeling she was about to discover just how deep the cracks ran. Discouraged but not defeated, Kiara, Bunga, and Ono continued their exploration. They came across a small watering hole, separate from the muddy puddle they'd seen earlier, but guarded by a grumpy-looking rhino. He was huge, his horn chipped and scarred, and his eyes narrowed suspiciously as they approached. "Halt!" he bellowed, his voice like rumbling thunder. This is my watering hole. Stay away. Kiara stepped forward cautiously. Hello, she said gently. I'm Kiara, and I'm here to— I know who you are, the rhino interrupted. Simba's daughter. Thinks she can just waltz in here and tell us what to do. That's not what Kiara began, but the rhino cut her off again. This territory has been ours for generations, he said, stomping his foot, sending a cloud of dust into the air. We don't need some pampered princess from the Pridelands telling us how to live. Suddenly, a voice rang out from behind them. He speaks the truth, little lioness. They turned to see an old lion emerging from the shadows of a rocky outcrop. His mane was thin and gray, and a scar ran across his left eye. He moved slowly, but his eyes held a fierce glint. Who are you? Kiara asked, trying to keep her voice steady. My name is Jabari, the old lion replied, his voice raspy. And this land is mine. Bunga, never one to back down, stepped forward. Yours? But Simba said. Jabari let out a harsh laugh. Simba has no claim here. This land belonged to my pride long before he was even born. We defended it, we nurtured it, and we will not let some outsider come in and take it from us. Kiara's heart sank. This wasn't just about a damaged territory and unhappy animals. This was about history, about pride, and about a deep-seated resentment towards the Pridelands. Jabari's claim complicated everything. It wasn't just about fixing the land, but about navigating a complex web of old grudges and challenging a lion who clearly wouldn't back down easily. Ono, perched on a nearby rock, sensed the tension in the air. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a potential conflict brewing, and Kiara was right in the middle of it. Kiara stood her ground, trying to project an air of confidence she didn't quite feel. Jabari, she said, my father sent me here to help. I don't want to take anything from you or your pride. I want to work with you to make this territory better for everyone. Jabari chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Work with me? You think I would trust the daughter of the lion who stole our lands? Stole? Kiara asked, confused. My father never told me. He wouldn't, Jabari snarled. The Pridelands used to be much smaller. Your grandfather, Mufasa, expanded the borders, pushing my pride out. We were forced to settle here on this barren land. Kiara's mind raced. She had never heard this side of the story. She knew her grandfather was a great king, but could he have been wrong? Could he have taken land that wasn't rightfully his? Before she could respond, the grumpy rhino, who Kiara now knew was called Bomba, grunted. Don't waste your breath, Jabari. She's one of them. They'll say anything to get what they want. Kiara turned to Bomba, trying to appeal to his sense of reason. I understand you're angry, she said, but I'm not my grandfather. I want to make things right. What can I do to earn your trust? Bomba es norte. There's nothing you can do. Just leave us alone. Just then, a young hyena, smaller and less menacing than Janja and his clan, cautiously approached. Maybe she's different, he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Jabari glared at the hyena. Silence, Zito. Don't be fooled by her sweet words. Zito shrunk back, clearly intimidated by Jabari. Kiara realized that Jabari wasn't just a leader. He was a powerful force, controlling the opinions and actions of those around him. She had to find a way to break through his resentment, to show him and the others that she genuinely wanted to help. But how could she convince someone who believed she was the enemy? This territory wasn't just divided by land. It was divided by history, by anger, and by fear. And Kiara had to find a way to bridge that gap, one paw print at a time. The task seemed almost impossible. Despite the chilly reception, Kiara was determined to prove her good intentions. She decided to start small. Remembering her father's teachings about the circle of life, she suggested a controlled burn of some of the dead grasses to encourage new growth. A controlled burn? Jabari scoffed, overhearing her conversation with Ono. Are you trying to set the whole territory ablaze? We know how to manage the land. But it could really help, Kiara insisted. The new grasses will provide fresh food for everyone. We've survived for generations without your new ideas, Bomba grumbled. We don't need you to burn our land to the ground. Kiara sighed. She tried another approach. She noticed that the muddy puddle, the only reliable water source besides Bomba's guarded watering hole, was attracting dangerous predators. She proposed digging a deeper well and reinforcing the area with thorn bushes to protect the smaller animals. "Dig a well," Jabari said, his eyes narrowing. "You'll just scare away the few animals that still come here, and those thorn bushes will just trap us." Even Zito, who had seemed somewhat sympathetic earlier, shook his head. "It's too dangerous," he squeaked. "The ground is unstable. It could collapse." Kiara felt a wave of frustration wash over her. Every idea she had was met with resistance and distrust. She tried to explain the benefits, to reassure them that she had their best interests at heart, but her words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Bunga, ever optimistic, tried to lighten the mood. "Hey, maybe we could find some yummy bugs while we dig. Double win." But even his enthusiasm couldn't penetrate the wall of negativity. Ono, observing from above, noticed that the animals weren't just rejecting Kiara's ideas. They were actively sabotaging them. He saw Bomba deliberately muddying the water in the puddle and Jabari spreading rumors that Kiara was planning to steal their remaining food. It was clear that they weren't just resistant to change. They were determined to undermine her efforts. Kiara was learning a hard lesson. Leadership wasn't just about having good ideas. It was about earning trust, overcoming prejudice, and facing active opposition. And in this territory, she was facing an uphill battle on all fronts. The sun seemed to mock her efforts, beating down on the dry, unforgiving land. Feeling defeated, Kiara wandered away from the others, seeking a quiet place to think. She sat beneath a withered baobab tree, its branches reaching towards the sky like skeletal fingers. Ono landed beside her, his brow furrowed with concern. "They just won't listen, Ono," Kiara said, her voice heavy with disappointment. "I don't know what to do." Ono, wise beyond his years, chirped softly. "Perhaps you need to understand why they won't listen, Kiara. There's more to this than just stubbornness." Remembering Jabari's words about Mufasa, Kiara decided to seek out Zito. He seemed less hardened than the others, a flicker of kindness still visible in his eyes. She found him scavenging for scraps near the rocky outcrop. "Zito," she said gently, approaching him slowly, "can you tell me what happened here? What made this territory so broken?" Zito hesitated, glancing nervously around before speaking in a hushed tone. "It wasn't always like this," he said. Before the drought, before the battles." "Battles?" Kiara asked, surprised. "Yes," Zito confirmed. "After Mufasa took their land, Jabari's pride tried to reclaim it. There were many fights. Lions against lions, hyenas against lions. It was a dark time. Many animals were hurt, many died. The land suffered too. The fighting scared away the herds, and the fires destroyed everything." He went on to explain that the drought had followed soon after, exacerbating the already dire situation. Animals fought over dwindling resources, and trust became a luxury they couldn't afford. The Pridelands, with their abundant resources, were seen as the enemy, a symbol of what they had lost. "Jabari lost his brother in one of those battles," Zito whispered. "That's why he hates the Pridelands so much. That's why he doesn't trust anyone from there." Kiara listened in stunned silence, the weight of the past crushing her. She finally understood. It wasn't just about land. It was about loss, about pain, and about a deep-seated fear of being hurt again. The distrust wasn't just directed at her. It was directed at everything she represented. This territory wasn't just suffering from a lack of resources, it was suffering from a broken heart. And Kiara realized that before she could heal the land, she had to heal the hearts of its inhabitants. She had to find a way to show them that she wasn't the enemy, that she was there to help them rebuild, not to repeat the mistakes of the past. The setting sun cast long, mournful shadows, a testament to the long and painful history of the forgotten territory. As if to punctuate the territory's woes, disaster struck. A fierce wind, unusually strong for that time of year, whipped through the dry savanna. It carried with it sparks from a distant cooking fire, carelessly left unattended. The sparks landed on the parched grasses, igniting them instantly. Fire! Ono shrieked, his voice filled with alarm. Fire! Everyone run! Panic erupted. The animals scattered in all directions, their fear overriding their distrust. The fire spread rapidly, fueled by the wind, consuming everything in its path. The thick smoke choked the air, making it difficult to see and breathe. Kiara, remembering her training with the Lion Guard, knew she had to act fast. "We need to stop the fire from spreading," she shouted, trying to make herself heard above the chaos. "Everyone, follow me." But no one listened. The animals were too panicked to think clearly, too focused on escaping the flames to cooperate. Jabari, his eyes filled with fear, led his pride towards the rocky outcrop, hoping it would provide some protection. Bamba, bellowing in distress, tried to herd the smaller animals towards the muddy puddle, but the smoke disoriented them, and they scattered in confusion. Kiara realized that she couldn't do this alone. She needed to find a way to unite the animals, to get them to work together to fight the fire. She spotted Zito, cowering near a bush, his eyes wide with terror. "Zito," she called out, "we need your help. You know this territory better than anyone. Where can we find water? Where's the wind blowing the fire?" Zito hesitated for a moment, his fear battling with a glimmer of hope. Then, seeing the desperation in Kiara's eyes, he nodded. "There's a small stream on the other side of the ridge," he shouted. "But it's a long way, and the wind is blowing the fire towards the dry riverbed." Kiara knew that the dry riverbed was the only thing separating the fire from the rest of the territory. If the fire crossed it, everything would be lost. This was the moment of truth. Could she convince these divided animals to work together to save their home? The flames roared around them, a terrifying reminder of the danger they faced. This territory wasn't just threatened by its past, it was threatened by its present. And Kiara had to find a way to bring them together, or everything would be reduced to ashes. The fate of the territory rested on her paws. "Zito, lead me to the stream," Kiara commanded, her voice ringing with newfound authority. "Bunga, Ono, spread the word. Tell everyone to bring whatever water they can find, gourds, leaves, anything. We need to create a fire break at the riverbed." Zito, emboldened by Kiara's decisive action, took off running towards the ridge. Bunga and Ono, despite the danger, bravely flew and scurried around, relaying Kiara's message. Kiara raced towards the dry riverbed, her heart pounding in her chest. She saw Jabari and his pride huddled near the rocks, watching the fire with a mixture of fear and resignation. "Jabari," Kiara called out, approaching him cautiously. "We need your help. The fire is heading for the riverbed. If it crosses, everything will be destroyed." Jabari looked at her, his eyes filled with skepticism. "Why should we help you?" he growled. "This is your fault. If you hadn't come here, this wouldn't have happened." "This isn't about me," Kiara pleaded. "This is about our home, about saving the territory. We need to work together." Just then, Bomba lumbered towards them, carrying a large, water-filled gourd in his trunk. "She's right, Jabari," he said, his voice surprisingly calm. "We can't just stand here and watch everything burn." Jabari hesitated, his gaze shifting from Kiara to Bomba, then to the approaching flames. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "What do you need us to do?" Kiara felt a surge of hope. "We need to create a fire break," she explained. "A strip of land cleared of all vegetation. We can use the water to dampen the ground and prevent the fire from spreading." Working side by side, the animals began to clear the riverbed. The lions used their powerful paws to dig up the dry grasses. The zebras used their hooves to stomp out the smaller flames, and the birds used their beaks to carry away burning debris. Even Zito, despite his fear, worked tirelessly, guiding the animals to the best sources of water. Kiara directed the effort, using her knowledge of fire control to create an effective fire break. She showed the animals how to work as a team, how to coordinate their efforts to maximize their impact. She ran back and forth, encouraging them, praising them, and reminding them of what they were fighting for. But even as they worked, some still doubted her. Some whispered that it was all a waste of time, that the fire was too strong, that they were doomed. Jabari, despite his initial cooperation, still watched her with suspicion, his eyes betraying his lingering distrust. Kiara knew that she had a long way to go before she could truly earn their trust. The smoke stung her eyes, the heat scorched her fur, but she pressed on, driven by a fierce determination to save the territory and prove herself as a leader. The orange glow of the fire illuminated their faces, a testament to the shared danger and the fragile hope that had begun to flicker in their hearts. As the animals worked tirelessly to create the firebreak, Kiara observed them closely, listening to their concerns and trying to understand their fears. She noticed that many of the animals were exhausted and dehydrated, but they were afraid to leave their posts, fearing that the fire would spread if they did. Kiara approached Jabari, who was directing his pride in clearing away debris. "Jabari," she said, "the animals are exhausted. We need to organize shifts so everyone can rest and get water." Jabari looked at her skeptically. "We don't have time for rest," he said. "The fire won't wait." "But they can't work if they collapse from exhaustion," Kiara argued. "We need to be smart about this. If we organize shifts, everyone can work more efficiently." Jabari hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "You organize it. Tell me what to do." Kiara quickly organized the animals into groups, assigning them specific tasks and ensuring that everyone had time to rest and rehydrate. She even convinced Bunga to use his knowledge of honey bugs to find a source of natural energy for the workers. As she worked, Kiara made a point of listening to the animals' concerns. She heard their fears about the future, their anxieties about the drought, and their resentment towards the Pridelands. She didn't try to dismiss their feelings or offer empty promises. Instead, she listened with empathy, acknowledging their pain and offering words of comfort and support. She learned that Bomba was worried about the dwindling water supply and the safety of his herd. She promised him that she would work with her father to find a way to bring more water to the territory. She learned that Zito was afraid of being alone and vulnerable. She assured him that she would protect him and help him find a place within the community. Slowly, gradually, the animals began to trust her. They saw that she was genuinely concerned about their well-being, that she was willing to listen to their concerns, and that she was committed to working with them to find solutions. The fire continued to rage, but the atmosphere in the riverbed began to change. The fear and distrust began to give way to hope and cooperation. This territory wasn't just fighting a fire, it was fighting its past. And Kiara was slowly, painstakingly, helping them to build a bridge to a better future. The flickering flames danced in their eyes, reflecting both the danger they faced and the growing sense of unity that bound them together. Just as the firebreak seemed to be holding, a new challenge arose. The wind shifted suddenly, blowing the flames directly towards a cluster of acacia trees where many of the smaller animals had taken refuge. Kiara saw the danger immediately. "We need to move those animals," she shouted. "They're in danger." But Jabari, who was overseeing the water distribution, blocked her path. "No," he said, his voice firm. "We can't spare anyone. The firebreak is our priority." "But those animals will be trapped," Kiara protested. "We have to help them." "They knew the risks when they chose to stay there," Jabari retorted. "We can't risk the entire territory for a few foolish creatures." Kiara was stunned by his callousness. "They're not foolish," she said, her voice rising. "They're scared and vulnerable, and it's our responsibility to protect them." "Your responsibility," Jabari corrected her, his eyes narrowing. "Not mine. I am responsible for the safety of my pride, and I will not jeopardize them for anyone else." "This isn't about your pride," Kiara argued. "This is about doing what's right, about helping those in need." Jabari stepped closer to Kiara, his gaze intense. "You talk about what's right," he said, his voice low and menacing. "But you don't understand what it's like to be responsible for others. You've always had everything handed to you. You've never had to make the tough choices, the sacrifices that are necessary to survive." He paused, then continued, his voice filled with bitterness. "I have seen too much death, too much suffering. I will not risk the lives of my pride for a few animals who may not even survive the night. Kiara stood her ground, her eyes locked on Jabari's. I may not have seen as much as you have, she said, her voice trembling slightly, but I know what it means to care about others, and I will not stand by and watch those animals burn. With that, Kiara turned and ran towards the acacia trees, determined to save the animals, even if it meant defying Jabari's authority. The flames crackled around her, a constant reminder of the danger she faced. This territory wasn't just a battleground between fire and earth. It was a battleground between compassion and indifference. And Kiara was determined to fight for what she believed in, even if it meant standing alone. The setting sun cast long shadows, painting the scene in hues of orange and gray, a stark contrast between the hope she carried and the darkness that threatened to consume them all. Kiara plunged into the smoke-filled area surrounding the acacia trees, calling out to the trapped animals. She found a group of frightened meerkats huddled together, their eyes wide with terror. "Come on," she urged them. "We need to get you out of here. Follow me." She led them through the smoke and flames, carefully guiding them towards a safer area. But as they emerged from the trees, a flaming branch fell directly in their path, blocking their escape. Without hesitation, Kiara leaped in front of the meerkats, using her body to shield them from the flames. She felt a searing pain as the fire singed her fur, but she didn't flinch. She knew she had to protect them, no matter the cost. Just then, a powerful roar echoed through the air. Jabari burst through the smoke, his eyes blazing with determination. He charged towards the flaming branch, using his massive paws to kick it away, clearing a path for Kiara and the meerkats. "Get them out of here," he roared at Kiara. "I'll hold the fire back." Kiara, surprised by Jabari's sudden change of heart, didn't hesitate. She led the meerkats to safety, then turned back to see Jabari battling the flames. She saw him cough and choke on the smoke, his fur scorched and blackened, but he stood his ground, protecting the animals from the fire. As she watched him, Kiara realized something important. Jabari wasn't indifferent to the suffering of others. He was simply afraid. Afraid of losing more than he already had. Afraid of making the wrong choice and endangering his pride. But deep down, he cared about the animals of this territory just as much as she did. He just had a different way of showing it. She ran back to his side, determined to help him. "We can do this together, Jabari," she shouted. "We can save them all." Jabari looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. For the first time, Kiara saw a flicker of trust in his gaze. He nodded slowly, then turned back to the fire, his roar filled with renewed determination. "Together," he said, his voice hoarse but firm. "For the territory." In that moment, Kiara and Jabari found common ground. They both cared about the well-being of the animals, and they were both willing to risk their lives to protect them. It was a turning point in their relationship, a moment of shared purpose that transcended their past conflicts and their different perspectives. The flames continued to dance around them, but now they were fighting side by side, united by a common goal. This territory wasn't just witnessing a fire. It was witnessing the birth of a fragile alliance, forged in the crucible of shared danger and mutual respect. With Jabari fighting alongside her, Kiara felt a surge of renewed hope. Together, they rallied the animals, organizing them into teams to fight the fire more effectively. They worked tirelessly, side by side, their combined strength and determination pushing back the flames. Bamba, seeing Jabari's change of heart, used his powerful trunk to create a makeshift water cannon, dousing the flames with precision and force. Zito, his fear replaced with courage, guided the animals to safe areas, using his knowledge of the terrain to navigate the smoke-filled landscape. Even the meerkats, inspired by Kiara's bravery, helped to carry water and stomp out small flames. As the night wore on, the fire began to subside. The wind died down, and the flames slowly flickered and died, leaving behind a blackened, smoldering landscape. Exhausted but triumphant, the animals gathered together, their faces streaked with soot and their bodies aching with fatigue. "We did it," Kiara said, her voice hoarse but filled with pride. "We saved our home." Jabari nodded, his eyes filled with a newfound respect. "Together," he said. "We did it together." In the days that followed, Kiara and Jabari worked together to rebuild the territory. They organized teams to clear away the debris, to plant new grasses, and to find new sources of water. They listened to the animals' concerns, addressing their needs, and working to create a more equitable and sustainable community. Kiara, remembering her promise to Bomba, contacted her father, Simba, and requested assistance in bringing water to the territory. Simba, moved by his daughter's dedication and the animals' resilience, agreed to help. He sent a team of engineers from the Pridelands to dig new wells and to create a system of irrigation that would ensure a reliable water supply for the territory. Jabari, drawing on his knowledge of the land, helped to identify areas where new grasses could thrive and where the animals could find shelter from the harsh sun. He also worked to mediate disputes between the different animal groups, fostering a sense of unity and cooperation. Even Zito, with Kiara's encouragement, stepped up to take on a leadership role. He organized patrols to protect the territory from predators and to ensure the safety of the smaller animals. This territory wasn't just recovering from a fire, it was discovering its strength. And Kiara and Jabari, once adversaries, were now leading the charge, proving that even the deepest divides could be overcome with compassion, understanding, and a shared commitment to a better future. The rising sun cast a golden glow on the recovering landscape, a symbol of hope and renewal for the United Territory. Just as the territory began to flourish, a new threat emerged. A pack of rogue jackals, driven from their own lands by a lack of resources, invaded the territory, preying on the smaller animals and disrupting the fragile peace. Panic threatened to erupt once more, but this time the animals didn't scatter in fear. They turned to Kiara and Jabari, seeking their leadership. "What do we do?" Bomba asked, his voice filled with anxiety. "They're strong, and they're hungry. We stand together," Kiara said, her voice firm and confident. "We protect our home. We won't let them take what we've worked so hard to rebuild." Jabari nodded in agreement. "Kiara is right," he said. "We will defend our territory. We will show them that we are not easy prey." Together, Kiara and Jabari devised a plan. They organized the animals into defensive units, assigning specific roles and responsibilities. The lions formed the front line, protecting the vulnerable animals. The zebras used their speed and agility to scout the jackal's movements. Bomba and the other large herbivores formed a protective barrier around the smaller animals. And Zito, with his knowledge of the terrain, guided the animals to safe havens. They set traps and ambushes, using their knowledge of the land to their advantage. They used their combined strength and ingenuity to outsmart the jackals, driving them back and protecting their territory. The jackals, surprised by the animals' organized resistance, launched a fierce attack. They were cunning and ruthless, but they were no match for the united animals of the territory. Kiara and Jabari fought side by side, their courage and determination inspiring the others. They defended their home with fierce protectiveness, driving back the jackals again and again. Bunga and Ono helped to relay messages across the battle lines, coordinating the defense efforts. After days of intense fighting, the jackals, realizing that they were outnumbered and outmatched, finally retreated, abandoning their attempt to conquer the territory. The animals cheered, their voices filled with relief and pride. They had faced a formidable challenge, but they had overcome it together, proving that even the smallest and weakest could stand strong when united by a common purpose. This territory wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, and the animals knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any obstacle that came their way. The setting sun cast a warm, golden glow on the victorious animals, a symbol of their resilience and their unbreakable bond. With the jackals defeated, a sense of peace and unity settled over the territory. The animals looked to Kiara with newfound respect, recognizing her courage, her compassion, and her unwavering commitment to their well-being. Jabari, standing beside her, placed a paw on her shoulder. "You have proven yourself a true leader, Kiara," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You have shown us that even the deepest divides can be overcome with understanding and kindness." Bomba nodded in agreement. "You may be from the Pridelands," he said, "but you have earned our trust. You are one of us now." Even Zito, who had once been so timid and afraid, stepped forward, his eyes shining with admiration. "Thank you, Kiara," he said. "You have given us hope. You have shown us that we can be strong, that we can overcome anything if we work together." Kiara smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had faced many challenges in this territory, but she had never given up. She had listened to the animals' concerns, she had respected their traditions, and she had worked tirelessly to earn their trust. And now, she had finally succeeded. She had not only united the territory, but she had also transformed it. The barren landscape had begun to flourish, the animals were healthy and thriving, and the community was strong and resilient. This territory wasn't just surviving. It was a testament to the power of unity, compassion, and strong leadership. The animals of the territory gathered around Kiara, showering her with praise and affection. They recognized her as their leader, not because of her lineage or her position, but because of her actions. She had earned their respect, not by force or intimidation, but by kindness and understanding. Kiara looked out at the faces of the animals, her heart filled with joy. She had come to this territory with the intention of helping them, but she had received so much more in return. She had learned valuable lessons about leadership, about compassion, and about the importance of unity. She had discovered her own strength and resilience, and she had found a new family in the animals of this forgotten territory. The rising sun cast a warm, golden glow on Kiara and the animals, a symbol of their shared triumph and their unbreakable bond. This was her territory, and she was proud to be their leader. The territory underwent a remarkable transformation. The once barren landscape blossomed into a vibrant ecosystem, teeming with life. The new wells, dug with the help of the Pridelands engineers, provided a reliable source of water, ensuring that the animals never went thirsty. Lush green grasses covered the savanna, providing ample food for the herbivores. The acacia trees, once withered and bare, were now adorned with vibrant green leaves, offering shade and shelter from the sun. The muddy puddle had been replaced by a sparkling watering hole, attracting animals from far and wide. The animals themselves were healthier and happier than they had ever been. The lions were strong and well-fed. The zebras were sleek and graceful, and the smaller animals were safe and secure. The territory had become a haven, a sanctuary where all animals could thrive. But the most significant change was in the animals' relationships with each other. The distrust and resentment that had once divided them had been replaced by a sense of unity and cooperation. They worked together to maintain the territory, to protect it from danger, and to ensure that all animals had access to the resources they needed. Jabari, once a bitter and resentful old lion, had become a wise and respected leader, guiding the animals with his knowledge and experience. Bomba, once a grumpy and territorial rhino, had become a gentle and compassionate protector, caring for the smaller animals and ensuring their safety. And Zito, once a timid and afraid hyena, had become a confident and courageous leader, inspiring the others with his bravery and his unwavering commitment to the community. The territory had become a shining example of what could be achieved when animals work together, when they put aside their differences and embrace their shared humanity. It was a testament to the power of compassion, understanding, and strong leadership. Kiara, standing on a high ridge overlooking the thriving territory, felt a surge of pride and gratitude. She had come to this territory with the intention of helping them, but she had received so much more in return. She had learned valuable lessons about leadership, about compassion, and about the importance of unity. She had discovered her own strength and resilience, and she had found a new family in the animals of this forgotten territory. The setting sun cast a golden glow on the flourishing landscape, a symbol of their shared triumph and their unbreakable bond. This was her territory, and she was proud to be their leader. The circle of life was thriving once more. Weeks later, Kiara stood beside Jabari on the ridge, watching the sun set over the thriving territory. Bunga and Ono were nearby, playing with a group of meerkat cubs, their laughter echoing through the air. The territory was peaceful, prosperous, and united. "I can't believe how much this place has changed," Kiara said, her voice filled with awe. "It's like a completely different world." Jabari nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "It is different," he said. "It is a testament to your leadership, Kiara. You have shown us that even the deepest wounds can heal, that even the most bitter enemies can become allies." Kiara smiled, her heart filled with gratitude. She had come to this territory with the intention of helping them, but she had learned so much more in return. She had learned the importance of understanding, patience, and unity in leadership. She had learned that true strength comes not from power or authority, but from compassion and empathy. "I never could have done it without you, Jabari," Kiara said. "You taught me so much about this territory, about its history, and about its people. You showed me that even the most hardened hearts can be softened with kindness." Jabari chuckled softly. "And you taught me that even the most naive idealists can make a difference," he said. "You showed me that it's never too late to change, to learn, and to grow." Kiara looked out at the setting sun, its golden rays bathing the territory in a warm, comforting light. She reflected on her journey, on the challenges she had faced, and on the lessons she had learned. She realized that leadership wasn't just about giving orders or making decisions. It was about inspiring others, about empowering them to reach their full potential, and about creating a community where everyone felt valued and respected. "I'll never forget my time here," Kiara said. "This territory will always hold a special place in my heart. And you will always hold a special place in our hearts, Kiara," Jabari said. "You are more than just a leader. You are a friend, a mentor, and a symbol of hope for all of us." Kiara smiled, her eyes